So, Jen, I want to focus on the ruling from Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida, the district judge, saying that there will be a special master dealing with the documents that were seized at Mar-a-Lago. And there will be a pause in investigators' ability to look at these and use these documents in the investigation. I think two major questions, and hopefully we'll cover both. Number one, the ruling itself, what do you think of it? And then secondly, and we'll get into this, what happens now? First, the ruling. What jumped out to you?
Well, it's a mess. It really is a mess. I mean, the judge had to find to establish jurisdiction and then to appoint the special master and enjoin the Justice Department from using the documents, a whole bunch of criteria that are delineated in statutes and cases, right? And for each of those, she either ignores them altogether or provides really unpersuasive evidence of these elements. So just to give one example, executive privilege. In order to say that the special master can review executive privilege, she has to show, or actually Donald Trump as the movement has to show, and she has to find irreparable harm and a likelihood of success on the merits. She cannot do that. She doesn't even do the legal analysis with respect to executive privilege. All that she says is it's not 100% precluded by the Supreme Court that he doesn't have an executive privilege here. But there's a lot of space in between not 100% and likelihood of success on the merits, which is 51%, right? So time and time again, Judge Cannon really just doesn't do any persuasive legal analysis here.
One of the things, Maggie, that you point out, Merrick Garland has always said that the DOJ is going to pursue its investigations without fear or favor. This judge, in her ruling, almost seemed to say, in this case, there is some favor, that Donald Trump, as the former president, might be in a little bit of a different category.
This judge who Trump appointed carved out what's essentially a Trump exception, or a presidential exception, I guess I should say. She basically talks on and on about how, not basically, she does talk on and on about how, the stain of an investigation can leave, an irreparable mark and how damaging that can be. She ignores the fact that the search warrant that existed, another magistrate signed off on, approved of, because he found overwhelming evidence of probable cause that there were potential crimes being committed. And this was after a year and a half of the federal government trying to get back documents that belonged to the government, not to Donald Trump. You wouldn't know any of that, really, from looking at this ruling. And so it is striking how this judge has created this exception suggesting that Trump should be given more deference than really any other, person who is facing an investigation gets in this country.
So what now? Jen, if you were there, if you were one of these prosecutors, would you appeal, knowing that the appeal might delay it even more?
Yeah, so this is a tough question because they really have to think about two things. They have to think about what damage is going to happen to their investigation as a result of the injunction that's being issued. And on that score, I think they might appeal because the judge didn't just say, put the documents aside. She says you can't use them. We don't even know what that means. I mean, they have reviewed all of these documents. So they have found leads for witness interviews. They may be issuing new subpoenas. What does this mean? Can they not issue subpoenas? If the subpoenas have been issued, can they not look at the returns when they come in? We don't really know. The special master won't really know. And so DOJ has to think about, do they need to appeal in order to try to get this injunction overturned or at least clarified? And then, the other issue is, does this set a bad precedent for going forward? Will DOJ now have to grapple with all of these people subject to searches coming in and saying, well, I know I haven't been charged yet, but, I want a special master too. What about me? And on that front, I actually think probably the precedent isn't too problematic because, as Maggie says, she makes such a big deal of the exceptional nature of this. He's the former president. This is about executive privilege in large part. So on those scores, I think it doesn't really apply necessarily to other potential search warrant folks down the road. So that's kind of the two competing issues for DOJ.
And Maggie,
now.
quickly, what are you watching going forward now?
I mean, look, the appeal is obviously the main thing. How long does this take, John? Let's say that the DOJ does go ahead with an appeal. How long does this stop their investigation, even as that's playing out? Does this kick into next year, into 2023, which is very possible? And one thing we didn't discuss is, how did the two sides even agree on who a special master is going to be? Who has the security clearances for this? It's a wild decision.
And the judge did say, you guys get together, figure out who the special master is going to be and come back to me. Hard to imagine.
They've had so much agreement so far. I'm sure this will go swimmingly.
Maggie Haberman, Jennifer Rogers, thanks so much for being here this morning.